Long before the world's living rooms flickered with light, before news anchors and sitcoms, there was one man whose imagination made it all possible: Philo Farnsworth. Known today as the father of television, Farnsworth was an American inventor whose brilliance transformed science fiction into daily reality. In 1927, at just 21 years old, he built the first fully functional all-electronic television system, earning the first U.S. patent that would change the way humanity saw itself. But Farnsworth's genius didn't stop there. Over the course of his lifetime, he would secure more than 300 patents, pioneering advancements not only in television, but also in radar, infrared night vision, and even nuclear fusion. His later invention, the Farnsworth Fusor, became one of the earliest devices to successfully achieve nuclear fusion, a glimpse into the power of the stars, captured by a mind that once dreamed in electrons and light. Yet, his journey was anything but smooth. Farnsworth found himself locked in an intense legal battle against one of the most powerful corporations in America, RCA, fighting to prove that the invention truly belonged to him. And decades later, as he watched mankind walk on the moon through the very medium he created, he turned to his wife, Pam, and said softly, "This has made it all worthwhile." This is the remarkable story of Philo Farnsworth, the forgotten genius who gave us the world on screen. At Rigby High School in Idaho, young Philo Farnsworth's fascination with electricity and machinery began to evolve into something extraordinary. He wasn't just a curious student. He was a visionary far ahead of his time. While most teenagers were preoccupied with sports or social life, Farnsworth was captivated by the mysteries of physics and chemistry, always seeking to understand how the invisible world of electrons could shape the future. It was during one of these classes that he shared an idea that would ultimately change history. Approaching his teacher, Justin Tolman, Farnsworth began sketching diagrams on the blackboard, lines, symbols, and circuits representing how an image could be transmitted electronically, not mechanically. He envisioned breaking down an image into horizontal lines and reassembling it at a distant point using electrons, the exact principle behind modern television. Tolman, recognizing the brilliance in this young mind, encouraged him to pursue the idea further. No one could have predicted that this simple chalk drawing on a high school blackboard would later become the decisive piece of evidence in a landmark patent case against RCA. But for Farnsworth, it was simply the joy of discovery, the thrill of transforming imagination into mechanism. At just 15, he wasn't chasing fame or fortune. He was chasing understanding, and in doing so, he had already seen the future flicker to life on a screen that didn't yet exist. In 1923, the Farnsworth family moved once again, this time to Provo, Utah, seeking new opportunities. But tragedy struck only months later. Philo's father, Louis Farnsworth, died suddenly of pneumonia in early 1924, leaving the family without its guiding hand. At just 17, Philo was thrust into adulthood, balancing grief, responsibility, and ambition all at once. Despite these hardships, his intellect continued to shine. He applied to the United States Naval Academy, earning one of the highest entrance exam scores in the entire nation. Yet his dream of higher education collided with reality. If he remained in the Navy, the government would own any patents he developed. Determined to pursue his own ideas and care for his family, he accepted an honorable discharge under the provision that allowed the eldest son of a fatherless family to return home. Back in Provo, Farnsworth enrolled at Brigham Young University, where he was drawn to its laboratories and scientific resources. Although official policy barred him from attending advanced science classes, his sheer determination won him access to the labs anyway. There, he immersed himself in electrical experiments, earning a junior radiotrician certificate and full National Radio Institute certification by 1925. During this time, Farnsworth met Elma Pym Gardner, a bright and kind-hearted student from a neighboring high school. Their friendship would soon grow into a lifelong partnership, one that would carry his inventions from fragile blueprints to the very birth of television. After his college years, Philo Farnsworth was determined to turn his ideas into working reality. Together with his future brother-in-law Cliff Gardner, he moved to Salt Lake City to start a small radio repair business. The venture, however, was short-lived. The pair lacked both experience in business and the capital to keep it running, and soon it folded. But this brief setback would lead Farnsworth toward the opportunity that would change his life. While in Salt Lake City, Farnsworth met Leslie Gorel and George Everson, two San Francisco philanthropists who were impressed by his intellect and vision. When he shared his concept for electronic television, they saw something remarkable, an invention that could redefine communication itself. Convinced of his potential, they invested $6,000 to fund his early research, an extraordinary sum at the time. With their backing, Farnsworth and his new wife Elma Pym Gardner, whom he married in May 1926, moved to California to begin his experiments. They first settled on Derby Street in Berkeley, where he filed his first patent for electronic television. Soon after, they relocated to 202 Green Street in San Francisco, where Farnsworth established his first professional laboratory. In this modest lab, filled with makeshift equipment and boundless ambition, the groundwork for the world's first all-electronic television system began to take shape, a young inventor quietly constructing the foundation of a global revolution. In the 1920s, the race to create a working television was already underway, but most inventors were focused on mechanical systems. The dominant technology of the time was the Nipkow disc, a rotating metal disc punctured with tiny holes arranged in a spiral. As it spun, light passed through the holes and struck a photosensitive element, generating an image one small portion at a time. It was ingenious for its era, but fatally limited. The mechanical parts were bulky, the images dim and unstable, and the moving discs made synchronization nearly impossible. Philo Farnsworth saw these limitations clearly. To him, the future of television couldn't rely on spinning gears or rotating mirrors. Instead, it had to be purely electronic, faster, more precise, and capable of producing a steady image using beams of electrons rather than mechanical motion. He envisioned a system that could scan and reproduce images line by line, controlled by electric fields instead of moving parts. This idea was revolutionary. While established inventors clung to mechanical designs, Farnsworth imagined an elegant alternative powered by physics, not machinery. His all-electronic scanning system would not only eliminate the flicker and distortion of early models, but also lay the groundwork for the high-resolution displays that would follow decades later. Where others saw mechanical puzzles, Farnsworth saw electrons as the brushstrokes of the future, painting light directly onto a screen. On September 7, 1927, inside a small laboratory at 202 Green Street in San Francisco, Philo Farnsworth achieved what no one else in the world had done before. His invention, the image dissector camera tube, successfully transmitted its first image, a simple, straight line glowing faintly on a receiver in the next room. After years of sketches, calculations, and endless tinkering, the moment was real. Turning to his assistants, Farnsworth broke the stunned silence with a quiet but historic statement. There you are, electronic television. The experiment was primitive by modern standards, but its implications were profound. The image dissector didn't rely on mechanical parts like spinning discs or mirrors. Instead, it used pure electronic scanning to capture light and convert it into electrical signals. This single breakthrough marked the birth of true electronic television. By 1928, Farnsworth had refined the system enough to hold a press demonstration, astonishing journalists by transmitting recognizable images. When his investors demanded to see some return on their funding, he cleverly displayed a glowing dollar sign, a playful nod to their impatience. A year later, in 1929, he removed the last remaining motor generator, making his television system completely mechanical-free. That same year, Farnsworth transmitted the first live human image, a small 3.5-inch picture of his wife, Elma Pem Farnsworth, immortalized as the first person ever seen on an electronic television screen. By the late 1920s, Philo Farnsworth's laboratory had become the birthplace of a technological revolution. After perfecting his image dissector and electronic receiver, he was ready to share his invention with the world. On September 3, 1928, Farnsworth conducted his first press demonstration of an all-electronic television system. Reporters gathered in his modest San Francisco lab watched in awe as moving images appeared on a screen. Faint, flickering, but unmistakably real. It was the first time anyone had witnessed a fully electronic television in operation, free of the gears and discs that had defined all previous attempts. Over the next few years, Farnsworth continued refining his design, making the picture clearer, the transmission faster, and the system more reliable. By 1934, his technology was mature enough for a grand public presentation. He chose the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, a fitting stage for such a milestone. There, before scientists, journalists, and industry experts, Farnsworth unveiled the world's first working all-electronic television system, a complete network with both a camera and a receiver. The audience watched as moving images were transmitted and displayed instantaneously through invisible electrical waves, something almost magical for its time. This wasn't theory or imagination anymore, it was proof. Farnsworth had turned the dream of electronic vision into a tangible reality, opening a new chapter in human communication and forever changing how the world would see itself. By the early 1930s, Philo Farnsworth's success had begun to attract attention from powerful figures in the growing electronics industry, most notably David Sarnoff, the formidable head of RCA, and his chief television engineer, Vladimir Zworykin. Zworykin had been attempting to develop his own electronic television system since the 1920s, but without practical success. Curious about Farnsworth's progress, he visited the young inventor's Green Street laboratory in San Francisco and witnessed the image dissector firsthand. Impressed, he even had his own team at Westinghouse build experimental copies to study its operation. Unable to replicate Farnsworth's results, Zworykin shifted his focus to developing a competing device called the iconoscope, while RCA sought to control television's future through patent ownership. In 1931, Sarnoff offered Farnsworth $100,000 for his patents, but only on the condition that he join RCA as an employee. Farnsworth refused, unwilling to surrender his independence or the rights to his creation. Instead, he joined Philco in Philadelphia, continuing his research between 1931 and 1933 before RCA filed a patent interference suit, claiming Zworykin's earlier application took priority. Farnsworth fought back, supported by the blackboard sketches his high school teacher, Justin Tolman, had preserved. In 1934, the U.S. Patent Office ruled in Farnsworth's favor, officially recognizing him as the true inventor of electronic television. RCA appealed repeatedly, but years later was forced to pay royalties, a belated victory for the young inventor who had outsmarted a corporate giant. In 1932, Philo Farnsworth's pursuit of funding and recognition took him across the Atlantic to England, where he met John Logie Baird, the Scottish pioneer who had demonstrated one of the earliest mechanical television systems. The two inventors, though approaching the same dream from opposite directions, shared mutual respect. Baird demonstrated his mechanical apparatus, while Farnsworth presented his vision of a completely electronic system, faster, cleaner, and infinitely more adaptable. During this trip, Farnsworth also negotiated with Geuersbach in Germany, securing an agreement in 1934 to develop his technology further. Just 2 years later, image dissector cameras based on his design were used to broadcast portions of the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games, marking one of the first large-scale uses of electronic television in history. Back in the United States, Farnsworth's laboratory began conducting experimental entertainment broadcasts, transmitting simple programs to test the limits of signal range and picture clarity. His restless curiosity also drove him beyond television. He developed a process to sterilize milk using radio waves, and even created a fog-penetrating beam for use on ships and aircraft. These projects reflected the same inventive spirit that had guided his television work, finding ways to harness unseen forces for human progress. By the mid-1930s, Farnsworth's vision had leapt from laboratory experiments to real-world applications, proving that his imagination extended far beyond the television screen. By 1938, Philo Farnsworth had firmly established himself as one of America's foremost inventors. To bring his technology to the public, he founded the Farnsworth Television and Radio Corporation in Fort Wayne, Indiana, serving as director of research. The company quickly became a center for innovation, manufacturing some of the earliest complete television systems, not just cameras or receivers, but fully integrated electronic setups ready for broadcast and home use. After more than a decade of patent battles, RCA finally conceded defeat. In 1939, the corporation agreed to a multi-year licensing deal with Farnsworth, paying close to $1 million for the rights to use his television patents. The settlement ended years of costly litigation and cleared the path for television's commercial debut. That same year, RCA proudly unveiled electronic television to the public at the New York World's Fair, signaling the dawn of the consumer television age, an era made possible by Farnsworth's breakthroughs. Meanwhile, the Farnsworth Corporation began large-scale production of television receivers and cameras, turning experimental technology into products ordinary people could own. From 1938 to 1951, the company continued refining and manufacturing its systems, solidifying Fort Wayne as one of the birthplaces of modern broadcasting. Farnsworth's dream, once a chalkboard sketch in a high school classroom, had evolved into a nationwide industry, bringing moving pictures and distant voices into homes across America. In 1951, the Farnsworth Television and Radio Corporation was acquired by International Telephone and Telegraph, ITT, marking a new chapter in Philo Farnsworth's inventive journey. Under ITT, Farnsworth relocated his operations to a basement laboratory on Pontiac Street in Fort Wayne, a space affectionately known as the Cave. It was here that his creativity entered a new phase, branching beyond television into defense and scientific research. Inside the Cave, Farnsworth and his team developed a series of pioneering technologies that would quietly influence the Cold War era. Among his many projects was an advanced defense early warning system, designed to detect incoming threats before they reached American soil. He also worked on submarine detection devices to enhance naval security, radar calibration instruments for precision targeting, and an innovative infrared telescope capable of observing heat signatures invisible to the human eye. Perhaps his most influential contribution from this period was the PPI projector, an upgraded version of the circular radar display. This invention provided air traffic controllers with a real-time, bird's-eye view of aircraft movement, forming the conceptual foundation of modern air traffic control systems still in use today. Though often secluded in his lab, Farnsworth's restless mind continued to shape technologies vital to science and national defense, proving that his genius extended far beyond the invention that first made him famous. Even as his television legacy solidified, Philo Farnsworth's attention turned toward a far greater challenge: unlocking the power of the stars. While working under ITT, he began developing a revolutionary nuclear fusion device known as the Farnsworth Fusor. Instead of using massive magnetic fields like traditional reactors, his system employed a principle called inertial electrostatic confinement, IEC. High-energy ions were accelerated into a small chamber, where they collided and briefly fused, releasing bursts of energy. For the first time, Farnsworth could clearly demonstrate that controlled nuclear fusion reactions were possible in a compact laboratory device. Yet the results came with a caveat. The reactions lasted only seconds and consumed more power than they produced. The technology, while not viable as a power source, had immense scientific value. It provided a reliable source of neutrons, useful for research and industry. By the mid-1960s, budget pressures within ITT began to mount. In 1965 and 1966, company executives, concerned about costs and limited progress, considered canceling the project. Farnsworth fought passionately to keep it alive, but the strain took a toll on his health. Eventually, the program was terminated, and Farnsworth was granted medical retirement. Despite this setback, the Fusor's legacy endured. Its elegant simplicity inspired later fusion concepts, including the Polywell reactor, keeping Farnsworth's dream of clean, limitless energy alive for generations of scientists to come. In 1967, after decades of invention and corporate struggle, Philo Farnsworth returned home to Utah, seeking both renewal and independence. That same year, Brigham Young University, where he had once studied as a determined young man, awarded him an honorary doctorate and provided him with a new base of operations, an underground concrete bunker laboratory beneath the campus. It was here that he hoped to continue his fusion research on his own terms. With the support of his wife, Pim, and a handful of loyal engineers, Farnsworth founded Philo T. Farnsworth Associates, PTFA. The team set out to refine the fusor and explore advanced plasma confinement methods, convinced that practical fusion power was within reach. Their efforts soon attracted the attention of NASA, which expressed interest in collaborating on potential applications. However, sustaining such research required constant funding, roughly $24,000 per month, and the financial backing quickly began to falter. Promised investments fell through, and the burden of maintaining staff, equipment, and operations grew unbearable. By Christmas of 1970, the situation had reached its breaking point. PTFA's loans were called in, their life insurance and savings depleted, and even the laboratory was sealed off by the IRS for unpaid taxes. In January 1971, after years of relentless dedication, Philo T. Farnsworth Associates disbanded, marking a quiet and heartbreaking end to the final chapter of one of history's greatest inventors. Despite inventing the very medium that reshaped the world, Philo Farnsworth appeared on television only once. In 1957, he was featured as a mystery guest on the CBS quiz show I've Got a Secret, introduced simply as Dr. X. When the panel failed to guess his secret, that he had invented electronic television, host Gary Moore invited him to discuss his latest projects, including early analog high-definition TV, flat-screen displays, and fusion research. Farnsworth modestly explained, "My contribution was to take out the moving parts and make the thing entirely electronic." A few years later, journalist Roy Southwick claimed to have interviewed him earlier, in 1953, on Kid TV near Rigby, Idaho. Yet Farnsworth's most poignant moment came in 1969 as he watched the moon landing live. Turning to his wife, he whispered, "Pim, this has made it all worthwhile." In his later years, the weight of unfulfilled ambitions and years of financial strain began to take their toll on Philo Farnsworth. Once a tireless visionary, he grew increasingly withdrawn, turning to alcohol as a means of coping with disappointment and exhaustion. His health declined rapidly, and by early 1971, he had become seriously ill. On March 11, 1971, at the age of 64, Farnsworth passed away from pneumonia at his home in Holiday, Utah. He was survived by his devoted wife, Elma Pim Farnsworth, who had been his steadfast partner in every experiment and setback, and by their two sons. Though the world had largely moved on, Pim would spend the rest of her life preserving his legacy, ensuring that history would remember the quiet genius who gave humanity the gift of sight through electronic vision. While television remains Philo Farnsworth's crowning achievement, his inventive genius extended far beyond the screen. He created the image dissector and later the image oscillite, technologies that became fundamental to early electronic imaging. Yet his curiosity led him into many other scientific frontiers. Farnsworth's innovations contributed to the development of radar systems, infrared night vision, and even early designs for the electron microscope, enhancing how humanity could perceive both the vast and the microscopic. He also applied his ingenuity to life-saving and medical technologies, including the baby incubator and gastroscope, and even to astronomical research with a prototype electronic telescope. Over the course of his lifetime, Farnsworth secured around 300 U.S. and international patents, each one reflecting his boundless imagination and his lifelong mission to turn invisible forces into tools of discovery. Though underappreciated during much of his lifetime, Philo Farnsworth's legacy has since been celebrated across the world. He was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 1984 and later into the Television Academy Hall of Fame in 2013. His alma mater, Brigham Young University, awarded him an honorary doctorate in 1967, and in 2006, he was posthumously presented with the Eagle Scout Award he had earned in his youth. The same year, he entered the Broadcast Pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame. Tributes to his work appear everywhere, from commemorative plaques in San Francisco, Windmore, and Fort Wayne to statues in Utah's state capitol and the Letterman Digital Arts Center. His likeness once stood in the U.S. Capitol's National Statuary Hall, later replaced in 2018. Exhibits at the Rigby Museum and a U.S. postage stamp continue to honor the man who revolutionized the way the world sees itself. Philo Farnsworth's story began in an Idaho field, where a teenage farm boy envisioned scanning pictures line by line, just as he plowed the earth. That simple thought became the foundation of television, a technology that forever changed how humanity sees and shares its world. Despite fierce battles against corporate giants and the constant struggle for recognition, Farnsworth's spirit never broke. From his image dissector to his daring experiments with nuclear fusion, he kept pushing the boundaries of science. And when he watched the 1969 moon landing on a television born from his imagination, he whispered, "Pim, this has made it all worthwhile." If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe to Real Life Legends. Click the in-screen video to watch our full documentary on Marie Curie, and check out the affiliate links below to help support more inspiring biographies.